Welcome to the Pinstripers Podcast, a podcast about pinstripers, hosted by two pinstripers. I'm one of your hosts, Jack Fleming.
And I am your other host, Freddie Villa.
All right. We are extremely excited today to be recording episode 2 of the podcast. Really thankful for all the people who listened to episode 1. Super thankful for all the feedback that we got from people. I did want to let everyone know we have an email address now specifically for the podcast. It is pinstripers.podcast@gmail.com. If y'all have any questions or, insight, ideas, shoot us an email, let us know. Maybe if we get some good questions, we might even read them on a podcast at some point in time, maybe get answers from some of our guests. Did you have any business that you wanted to mention, Freddie?
No, sir. I'm with you. I appreciate everybody's input so far, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback, and we appreciate all of the mentions. A lot of folks are saying we should get this person on and that person on, and we're definitely taking note.
Oh, yeah. I think we've got a really long list.
Yes.
Another quick thing too, as far as where you can find the podcast at right now. Obviously, if you're listening, you can hear it, but it's hosted through Buzzsprout. I think there's a way to find it through them. It is on Spotify. It's on, iHeartRadio, and what's the name of the other one?
I think it's supposed to be on Stitcher soon, but
Stitcher. Yeah, I think it is on Stitcher.
Okay.
If not, it's supposed to be there soon, like you said. The website that we have for this is pinstriperspodcast.buzzsprout.com. But I think that's kind of enough of all of that stuff. Who's our host or our guest today, Freddie?
So our guest today will be the great Craig Judd.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, yeah. He's pretty cool dude, and he's got a long history of pinstriping. So without further ado, we're just going to give him a call here on the three-way. Hello, Craig. This is Freddie calling you back.
Hey, Freddie.
Hey, man. Let me go ahead and get Jack added onto the phone call. Give me 1 second. All right. Jack, you there?
I am.
All right. Can you hear him okay, Craig?
Yeah, I can hear him fine. Hey, Jack.
How you doing? I can hear you good, too.
Oh, good.
But yeah, good morning. You're in, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Chowchilla, California?
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah, you pronounced it perfect. That's exactly it.
I lived a little bit south of there at one point in time. I'm kind of familiar.
What town was that?
I bounced around a little bit. I was in Paso Robles for a little bit. I was in South Bakersfield.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Taft for a little while, if you know where Taft is.
Yeah, that's kind of like Bakersfield, if I remember right.
Yeah, I was kind of in that South Bakersfield area.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know where all those places are.
Yeah, Similar Valley, just south of you.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, Chowchilla is kind of like dead center in California.
I was curious. It's not a very big town, right?
No, it's really small, but what made the population grow so quick, they put in two women prisons. So they use all the people in the prison, they use that as the people in Chowchilla too. But it's really a small, sleepy little town. And it's been very good to me. I mean, anything that happens in this town, they give you notoriety. They write up about it in the paper. So it's really a cool little town.
I saw on YouTube, I think it was a news story that they had in the news about you whenever the Butler exhibit was going on.
That Channel 24 out of Fresno, California. Yeah, I thought that was really nice. Well, the lady that did that, she was actually from Ohio. That's where she lived, where the museum was. That's why she wanted to do the story. And then she told me and my son all the places to eat, all the good places to go. So we kind of knew a little bit about Ohio. It was kind of nice. And then, of course, meeting all you guys, too, was just icing on the cake.
Yeah, that was kind of neat. I know that's where me and Freddie met you. Prior to that, I'd kind of heard of you and seen a little bit of your work, but up until then, I'd never seen any of it in person. Amazing stuff. For the listeners that are on this, you had 2 pieces, if I remember correctly, in there.
Yeah, I did.
Were both of them kind of like bowling pin type pieces?
One was a bowling. Actually, it was a cast off a bowling pin. It was aluminum. It was cut in half, and I embellished that on the panel and did that one. That one was called California Gold, and then the other one was a blister that was pressed out, and they used those. They cut those after they pressed them out, and they cut them and they put them on hot rods where tailpipes come out, or different things with them. But I used that one for the second piece, and I called that one Sally Ann.
I got to say, those were absolutely beautiful, and the fine lines that you do were just incredible.
Oh, man, I appreciate that. I'm kind of that's what I'm kind of notarized for. Notary, there's the fine lines, and I mean, there's a place for fine lines and there's a place for thick lines. And I do a lot of clear coating. When I do the clear coating, I use really thin lines for that. So I know they're always going to hold up.
I know on those pieces, boy, the fine line work on it was amazing. And then I've seen pictures. It's your son, Steve, right? That posts pictures on the internet. Mm-hmm. Man, he's posted some pictures of some cars that have both thicker lines on them and thinner lines and then work very well together.
Yeah. Well, the Fresno style is the 1/4-inch stripe, and that's kind of what we all bounce off of, and then we outline that 1/4-inch, and it's kind of like the Fresno style, but it started with a guy by the name of Neil Averill in Fresno. That's who kind of started that style, and he just passed maybe a couple years ago. But he was a big influence in my life. I mean, I thought it was the prettiest striping I've ever seen, and I bounced off his work.
Was he out of Fresno then, or? Yeah,
he was actually born. Well, actually, he lived only 8 miles from my shop in Chowchilla. He was in Madera. That's the town beside us, and that's where he was born and raised. And me and him was exactly the same age in high school and everything. And I can remember looking back, he was just like the coolest cat on the planet, doing airbrushing T-shirts and sweatshirts and striping stuff. At 13 years old, he was doing that kind of stuff.
And how old were you then whenever you started? Did you guys start around the same time?
No, I didn't get really started till about 20. Well, actually, I went to work for a dealership in Chowchilla, a Chevrolet dealership. And I actually got hired to wash. I was only a kid. I was only maybe 20, maybe 19. And I was hired to wash cars and detail cars. That was my job. And I ended up working myself into the body shop within 6 months and started painting cars and doing body work, and worked there for 4 or 5 years and became a body man and painter, a journeyman. I mean, I can paint cars. I don't do it anymore, but it really helped me in my career of taking dents out of motorcycle tanks and painting them and spotting them in. So that really helped me, that little body shop.
I was wondering if you still did them at all anymore.
Yeah, that now when you paint a bike, you got 18 pieces, and I kind of got away from it. I stripe a bike when they're all together, but I did a lot of motorcycles, but I just don't have the time anymore to do all that.
Right. I get people that send whole bike 10 sets to me, and they take up the whole studio because there's so many pieces nowadays. Yeah. I totally understand.
Yeah, you look at it and it just wears you out just looking at them. You think all the stuff's got to go together and has to fit. And it's kind of a tough job. Really.
Yeah. Whenever you're doing them off the bike too, trying to get any idea of how lines are going to flow from one thing to another.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough deal. I always call it a curse, man, to do those. But I mean, back in the day, you had to do all of it. I mean, I made a living doing this, so that was your job,
So how long have you been striping for then?
I actually started really making money in about 1970, but I was messing around with it in the 60s. And, looking at those small little hot rod books, looking at people's work like Von Dutch's and Dean Jeffries and all those guys from LA, they were all in the magazines. There was some that was really impressive, and some of them was pretty crude, but like I said, I bounced off Neil Averill and Bob Kovac out of Fresno. and they had the really cool style, and the color combinations were just absolutely gorgeous. So that's kind of where I got my style from.
How would you describe the color combinations and stuff that they're using?
Well, they used a lot of purples and stuff like that, and real gold metallic. They could stripe in that real gold metallic, which is hard to do. I always had to put a little bit of imitation gold in that real gold metallic so the brush would pull it, because it kind of, when you start pulling it, it starts running out to nothing. I mean, I'm sure you've done that with that real gold.
Right.
But I know if you put a little imitation with it, it doesn't hurt anything, and you can actually pull a line with it. But a lot of the colors they use, like nowadays, the lime green is really popular, and no one used any of those colors back in the '60s. It was basically reds, blues, dark greens, but never lime greens and purples and pinks. And I remember back in the '80s, the pinks and purples was real hot,
right?
And everybody bounced off those colors. I think I call it Miami Vice colors back in those days. That's what everybody was using.
Yeah, those
seems like at least. Go ahead, Freddie.
Those are my favorite colors right now: the purple, teal, and pink.
They're making a comeback.
Oh, I love them. I love that combination.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, they're coming back, and it's just exciting to watch these new young guys come up with all this new stuff. I'm
kind of curious. A couple of things real quick. Where you're at is quite a ways away from LA, and you mentioned the people around there that a lot of people know of, Von Dutch and so forth.
Right, we're about 4 hours from LA.
Did you ever, I guess, rub shoulders with them? I guess kind of what I'm curious about is you mentioned the Fresno style, and there being kind of a regionality sort of thing there. Is that something that has been common, you think, or?
You know what? The originators really, if you think about it, you guys are pretty young, but I can remember back it was Larry Watson, Tom Kelly, who was all the rest of them? Von Dutch, Dean Jeffries. Dean Jeffries was called the modern day striper, if I remember right, because he was a one-liner. And back in them days, a lot of people, I called it chicken scratch. They'd put stuff around the door handles and stuff on the hood. They really couldn't pull the long lines. But Dean Jeffries and Tommy the Greek was from Oakland, California, and that's about another 3 miles on the other end of California. He was notarized for being noticed for the teardrops and the 1/4-inch stripe. And Neil Averill, he got bored with it. We talked for a long time one time. He got bored with that. He's seen it. He went and he visited everybody that was anybody. When he was 13 years old, his mom would take him to these places.
That's awesome.
And and he had so much knowledge. And he said that the scallops came off of airplanes. If you look back at those old planes in the 40s and the 50s, they had the scallops on them. That's where they bounced off that and put them on cars. And then the teardrops came off of fire engine wheels. They were like darts on the wheels, and they put those on cars. And then some of the spoke wheels were squared on the ends, and Neil took that and put points on them instead of squares. And then the 1/4-inch stripe come off of there was like 1/2-inch stripes on fire engines. And Tommy the Greek started doing that on cars, and Neil went and seen him, and he said, I was getting bored with doing that, so I ended up putting a thin line right down the middle of that 1/4-inch stripe and an outline on both sides, and dropped down a little ways and put another thin line. And that style is still going on today out of Fresno.
How many people do you think there are that are using that style in the Fresno area?
Well, there's young guys coming up. I think they're using, I haven't seen that much of it with them, but there's a guy by the name of Cycle Art. He's still using it. He's an incredible striper. Jimmy Ogawa is one of my really good friends. He worked under Neil Averill for 18 years. So he had a lot of knowledge about, he's just killer on his graphics and his striping. Just anybody that's in Fresno that's a little older, they're still using that 1/4-inch stripe. If you watch Pinstripers Garage, you'll see a lot of my work that I'm using the 1/4-inch stripe.
Yeah, I've been looking at that. It's
It's
the
a
color
hard job.
combinations in it makes it really, really fascinating.
Yeah. And you know what I've been doing lately? Well, I've been doing it for the last 10 years. I've been doing base coat, clear coat, stripes. You got to mask the whole car up, spray that 1/4 inch, unmask it, sand that edge down because it's got a clear coat, and then buff it and then stripe it. So it's a big job. But those colors are so pretty because they're candies or pearls, and they're just really, really nice. But it
So
takes about, go ahead.
The fat line then on it, or the biggest line on it then is actually a sprayed base coat, is what you're saying?
Yeah, back in the day, I used to freehand all those on. I remember going to a dealership in Merced, that's about 17 miles from me, and going on the showroom floor. They'd have 4 brand new Hondas on the showroom floor, and I'd freehand all those 1/4 inch stripes. And then while they were still wet, I'd be outlining them. I couldn't do that right now. I don't think I wouldn't want to try to do it, but I would do that. Go back once a week and do all those cars over again. They'd sell them. But you know, I noticed that dealerships don't do that much anymore.
I don't see a lot around here, and I know guys around here that have done dealership work for a long time that are pulling away from it because they say and especially since the whole pandemic thing, they say there's just not a lot of work for it.
Well, and two, you know what, Jack, if you look at these cars nowadays, these new cars, they have funny creases on them.
Yes.
You know, and I try to tell everybody, they ask me how I do them. And I said, you know, I kind of act like there's no creases there. I kind of go right through those creases and don't try to accent those because they really don't need to be accented. I've always said that simplicity is beauty. Just a simple, pretty line down the side with maybe a little scroll work at the end. That's basically all you need. You don't have to go around all those creases and angles and stuff.
Right. I know for me, and I think I heard you mention it was either in the podcast that we'd heard about where you were interviewed before, or maybe in a video or something, but the newer trucks with all the lines and stuff that they have on them, there's a lot that can be played off of. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. There's not a whole lot of point whenever they're as strong of lines as they are. I can't see.
Right. It's almost, it's too much. So you have to make it simple and clean. Like I said, simplicity is beauty. And there's a time and place for a little curve down here, a little curve down there. But I've always tried to keep it simple. You know.
Well, I'm, again, trying to learn stuff about you and what all it is you do right now. Do you do a lot of newer cars then? Or?
Yeah, in fact, I got a pickup out in my shop right now. I actually did that 10 years ago, and you just had it repainted, and I'm redoing it again. But back then, I did a lot of, I call them mini graphics in the striping, and I've kind of got away from that. I do a little bit, but not much. And I was telling the guy, I said, I did that 10, 12 years ago, and it's dated with those graphics. I would like to just do a real clean band. That's what I call a band, a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch. And I bring it to a point to the front and point to the back. So we talked a little bit, and he goes, well, I think I kind of like that too. So anyway, yeah. And then I did work for a toy company, and I'm doing some model cars for a guy in Australia. I've been doing them, and I've been sending them to him, the muscle machines.
Is that the same toy company that you had worked for? Or? Yeah.
And actually that toy company went out of business, and another person bought it. But this guy in Australia, I started working for those guys in 2005. And I think I did 12 or 15 cars for him. And I actually did the trading cards that went in the cars. Well, anyway, this guy from Australia finally gets hold of my son, Steve, because I'm not on the internet too much. And he goes, I've been looking for your dad for about 10 or 15 years. I want him to do some cars for me. So we hooked up, and I think I've done 7. And these cars I'm doing for him right now, I call them one of one. There's only one of these in the world. He's got the biggest collection in the world of muscle machines.
I saw a picture. I think it was a red car, if I remember correctly, that had striping all over it. Is that what it is that you're doing for him then? Is you're striping on the cars? Okay.
Yeah, I take them all apart, paint them. In fact, I just did a lime green one. It's a chase car. They call it a chase car. It's a holiday car. It's got Santa Claus on the top. It's got bells and ribbons and holly berries and all graphicked out. It's one of a kind. And I always put one of one on those because there's only one. And he's actually got all my prototypes that I did. I guess when the company sold, the guy that I was working for sold a lot of the cars, the original cars that I did. So he's got the originals, and he's got the ones made off of them from China.
I personally hadn't seen them. How big are those cars?
They're 1/18 scale.
Okay.
They're beautiful models. They're real heavy, and they got big honking engines sticking out of them. They're all tweaked with big slicks on the back. They're just really a cool toy.
Yeah, I just found the picture on Pinstripers Garage. Your son had posted a picture of the red one that I was talking about. I'm looking at that right now.
Yeah. In fact, I still got the green one and the red one right here right now. It's kind of a difficult to be sending them to Australia. That's what my friend told me in Australia. So he wants me to wait a little bit before I send them because they're not accepting things from America or something. I can't remember exactly why that was, but I still got those two cars.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't shipped anything international in probably 2 years just because of all the shipping stuff that's going on.
Yeah, it's expensive, especially to Australia.
So you're still striping newer cars, you're striping the toys and stuff. Is there anything else that you're doing as far as your business is concerned right now? Or?
I'm doing a lot of artwork with panels and stuff, but I've sold a few of them, and I really wish I wouldn't have sold them because they were one of a kind and they were so intricate. But I'm still, when I get bored, in fact, I got some panels I'm starting on right now. I'm gonna start on those. I love doing those. But I'm still striping new pickups, new cars. I just get calls every day. People want me to still stripe their cars. And I got a clientele that goes back all the way to the 60s. I mean, I've done those guys' work. I've done their kids' work. I've done their grandkids' work. And Chowchilla has been really good to me. I mean, it's a small town. And anything you do, you get notoriety for it, and so that's really.
Go
ahead.
I find it really interesting that you're in a small town like that because for me, it's similar. I'm an hour outside of Fort Worth. I'm in a pretty small town and have a business, and I've managed to stay pretty busy. And like you said, there's a lot of support in a small town.
There really is.
Does most of the work that you get then from the local area, or?
Well, I've done work for a guy by the name of John Nissen. He's an incredible hot rod builder. I did 10 cars for him. I mean, incredible cars. And then when I was working for the toy company, the owner and the CEO was building a Studebaker in 1949 or 1950. It was called the Panic Parrot. And he asked me if I'd do the flames on it. So I went to LA. I was down there for 7 days. I come in on a Thursday and I left on a Thursday, and I worked 12-hour days on that car. And it was actually on Super Rod. The front page is Super Rod, and it's got a 3 fold-out print of that car. I've never seen a 3 fold-out. I've seen a 1 or a 2, but this got 3. But I go do things like that. But yeah, I got to do some like high dollar. These are high dollar cars. And you talk about getting nervous now. You get a little nervous when you come in on something like that. You gotta build yourself up and tell yourself they're calling you for a reason.
Yeah.
So you still get nervous over stuff like that, huh?
Well, a little bit, because especially when you get older. Back in the day when you was young, I mean, I would take anything. I don't care what it was through my shop. If they would come in, I would do it. But now I kind of pick and choose what I want to do, because I don't have to work that hard anymore. But I love still doing it. Pinstriping's been very good to me, especially in this little town of Chowchilla. And I did some work for Bel Air Motorsports, and they took my artwork and made signs and clocks and thermometers out of it. And so it duplicated my work, which is anytime you can duplicate your work, that's a good thing. Because I end up giving it to charities to auction off and stuff, and my stuff goes really for big money. I got now people in this town that wants to collect my stuff. They'll call me all the time, want to know what I got. They want to collect it.
When you say you're giving work to charities and all, are you talking about giving the reproductions to charities?
Yeah,
or giving
the
originals to
reproductions.
charities?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, the reproductions, and they go for big money. The clocks and the signs. And I come up with some really clever sayings. I did one years ago, and it was the #1 seller. It was called "Good work ain't cheap, and cheap work ain't good."
I saw a picture of that.
Yeah, I did a 49 Ford with a mechanic by it. And then I did another one where two guys were putting in an engine, had a chain over a limb of a tree. And it said, poor boys got poor ways. And I did that one. And then I did a shrunken head. It was called Hot Rod Grill or something, smoking good. I did so many for them. They sold it. They were in Summit Magazine. They were all on eBay. And then
I know. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. And then I end up doing a series of little bowling pins called Pinheads. And those are being sold on eBay.
Yeah, I
was going to say.
Go ahead, brother.
I was going to say on the pieces you were talking about, the clocks and so forth. The pictures I've seen of them, just for people that are listening, they're not pinstripe designs necessarily. It's more illustrations. So
more illustrations, yeah.
Right.
I put a little striping with them, and I've got a few more that I never. Well, I'm going to put them in production. I did one with the firemen. In fact, I did it around when they hit the Twin Towers. I did a fireman with True Fire behind it with the American flag, and it said, "You can't burn this one." I can't burn this one. We'll never forget. And I'm going to put that in production. And then I did another one. I'll tell you a funny story. I didn't have insurance for a long time, so I finally got insurance. And I told my wife, I said, well, I got to go to the doctor and get a physical. And I said, I guess if I'm dying, I'm dying. I said, but if I go to heaven, I guess I'll stripe zebras. So I did a piece of artwork of me in the clouds striping a zebra. And then my grandson's a writer, and he wrote a children's book off of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, then I just did another one where leopards gets their spots. It was me over top of a leopard putting spots on a leopard. And
are these books then that have been published, or
not yet? We're still working on that. But he's when he writes them, it's like Dr. Seuss. Everything rhymes.
That's awesome.
It's amazing it's amazing how art kind of creates more art.
Yeah, it's crazy. One thing will bounce off another one, then you'll get on something else. And he's a really good artist. He does work on the internet and sells his work. Like I know you can airbrush and stuff right on the internet, and that's what he does.
Wow. I've seen some sculptures and stuff that I guess maybe they're collaborations between you and someone else, or
yeah, it was my good friend Jason Miller, incredible artist, and we draw these things out, and he's done several for me. Big pieces. I did a hand with wings on it. It's got striping. Then I did my logo. It's a flying eyeball, but it's got legs. It's a character, and he did the original for that. Then I made a mold off that, and I've sold those at car shows for big money.
That's cool.
And I wrote a song. Well, actually, I helped write this song, and then my son Steve can sing and play, and my other son Craig, he's a musician. They put words to that flying eyeball, so the eyeball lights up and plays a song about pinstriping.
Wow!
And you can get that. You can hear the song on YouTube. You'd have to get hold of Steve. He could lead you to it.
Do you have just two sons then, or
no? I got 4 boys. Okay. And actually, I put them all through school. Just me striping. So there's a way to make a living with the striping.
Have any of them had interest in pinstriping themselves?
Well, they're all really good artists, but they're musicians, but they all have good jobs. And I know they wanted to do what I did. And I said, I don't really want you to do that because, there's not too much light at the end of the tunnel because there's no vacations, there's no insurance, there's nothing. You guys know.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
that's all about it.
Yeah, that's why I do part-time. I'm a part-time.
You're smart.
Yeah.
You're smart.
I'm a hobbyist, so I got a warehouse job, and I keep it for the insurance, 401k, and all that stuff.
Very smart.
Well, thank you.
Me and Craig are living dangerously.
Yeah,
yeah, you're right.
Y'all are on the edge.
It can be done. If you do nice work and you got a clientele built up, you can make a living.
Do you feel like there was like an ebb and flow? There was times where it was low and high for you, or was it pretty steady?
Man, back in the 80s when that recession hit, it was bad. But you did other things. I would do like artwork if the striping was slow, I'd do artwork. I could sell it. I've had a lot of people just come over here, and I've got a lot of stuff in my shop just sitting there. And people come in, well, I want to buy this, I want to buy that. And I said, well, I don't really want to sell it, but when you need the money, you have to sell it. When I was in LA, when I did my 2 instructional videos, one on pinstriping, one on flames, I did a circuit with those. I went to the big car shows. I went to the Grand National, and that's where I met Steve Metz. He was the owner and the CEO of Muscle Machine. And, I never did any model cars before, and I'm demonstrating pinstriping to sell my videos, and I'm looking at this guy, and he's buying everything in my booth. I thought, who in the world is this guy? So he comes over to me. He goes, are you Craig Judd? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, listen, I'm Steve Metz, and I've never seen this style before. I really like it, and I'd like for you to do some cars for me. And I said, well, I was like worried, how big are these cars? If they're little bitty cars, I don't want to do them. And he said they're 1/18 scale, and I really didn't know how big they were, but I found out later. So then he wanted to meet with me on the Sunday when I was going back to Chowchilla. He lived in Monrovia, so we went by his office. I'm telling you guys, I never seen so much eye candy in my life in this office. It was like so much stuff to see. Every muscle machine that was ever painted was on the side of the walls. He had hot rods in there. He had surfboards. He had the hoods on the ceiling, all custom painted. So we struck up a friendship, and I did work for him on the muscle machines. Then he came up with this idea to do the bowling pins, the small ones are called pinheads. I did those. Then he calls me one day, and he goes, and I didn't know nothing about this movie, the movie Cars. And he goes, Craig, there's 3 hoods that's got to be painted. And I think you might be the guy to do this, and I'd like for you to come down and see these. So I went down there, and there's the 3 hoods. These are real hoods. They were just rust buckets. And he gave me all the specs, how they were supposed to be done. And I said, okay, we'll do it. Well, it turned out that movie was a classic, that car movie.
Oh, yeah.
Are you talking about the animated movie?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And I did the hoods that was in Ramon's garage. Remember when that little car was going back to get his tires? Then he went into Ramon's garage to get his paint job.
Right.
Well, the camera went in the back of the garage, and there's the 3 hoods that I did. There was 3 of them. One was a Chevelle hood, one was a Cadillac hood, and one was a 49 Merc hood. And the yellow one was, I had to put radiator springs on it. But those hoods end up going to Paris, and I got to go to Paris to see those in the ride in Disneyland.
You painted the original hoods there. Did they just scan them, I guess, then, and to put them into the movie, or?
Well, actually, there were specs for me to work off of to how they were supposed to be. One of them, the yellow one, had to be yellow metal flake, and they don't make it. Well, you guys know how to paint. They don't make a yellow metal flake. So I made an illusion. I painted it yellow, and I used a pearl. It was like a real thin paper flake, but I pulled it off, and it looked just like metal flake. But no, they took pictures of all those, and they end up going to Paris. And they're actually, I got to see them. They're hanging up in the ride in Paris, the movie Cars ride.
You had some other exposure in other movies as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did featured car in Hollywood Nights. It was a 44. It actually belonged to my friend, and it was chopped and channeled. It was in Hot Rod Magazine. It was called the Yellow Submarine. And what happened with that, the car come out in Hot Rod Magazine, made the top 10 Hot Rod of the year. Well, they're making this movie, Hollywood Nights, with Tony Danza and Michelle Pfeiffer. And they seen the car, and they thought this car would be the perfect car to be the featured car in the movie, and that's what it ended up being. But yeah, that was. And every time I watch the movie, I see the car, and it was really a neat car.
Do you hear a little cha-ching? Do you get a little some side action?
No, I got paid for the job. That's all I got. In fact, when I worked for the toy company, you think you're going to make big money, but it paid okay. I was really, the notoriety, was really, really good. They treated me good. They put me in a motel for 7 days when I did that Panic Parrot, the Studebaker, and they made a model off that Panic Parrot. But I met some incredible people through this, the really young guys that are striping, and And that's the reason I made those 2 instructional videos, to help people, because I exposed every secret there was in those videos.
Yeah,
I've watched one part of one of them. I haven't made it through all of them yet.
Mm-hmm.
I got through all 3, and it was. I think I saw those early when I first started pinstriping. I was prowling YouTube like hard, and I remember spotting those, and they did help me guide, because you explained the reducers that you use, the type of tape, the oils. I think at the time, and you were using, I think, either lard oil or what was it?
Transmission fluid.
Yeah.
It works perfect for me.
Yeah.
It may not be right, but I've used it all these years. I used to use lard oil, but every once in a while you get a little mouse in your shop. They'll leave those brushes up with that lard oil on it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, I heard that same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that will happen. So I've used transmission fluid, and it seemed like it's probably not right, but I know One Shot's got their own preservative, I think.
Yep. I used neat's foot oil for like 10 years. And
what was it?
Was it neat's foot oil?
Uh-huh.
And I had never had any problems with that, but I've been using actual brush oil lately. Just seems like if it's there and it's made for it, then why not?
Use it. Yeah. Steincraft picked up my video, and they sold it for a few years. And the guy that owned the magazine called me, and I sent it to him, and he wanted to see it. And he called me back. He goes, "It's absolutely one of the best videos that I've ever seen on pinstriping, because you exposed everything." The only thing I really wish I would, and I didn't think about it at the time, was how to trim the brush, like take the belly out a little bit and take the hairs off the end.
You did mention trimming to make your own
little outliners.
Outliners, that's right. And yeah, because you were talking about spinning the brush and trimming around it to create your own shape.
Yeah, and the hairs are shorter than the outliner. That's why I like them. And if you looked at all my striping brushes, you'd probably laugh, because they're just absolutely wore out. But I do so much fine detail work on those little model cars and my artwork. I use those,
And with doing the real fine lines, have you ever had any issues with like adhesion, like it not sticking well with the fine line like you do?
Well, the only thing bad about the fine lines, and I used to do diesel trucks in those, and I thought, I got to step up and do fatter lines. I think I was trying to impress people with the thin lines, but I thought, there's a time and place for that. But what happens with the thin lines, they don't chip off that much, but they will fade pretty easy.
Yeah, that was another thing that I thought could possibly happen, but I'm sure the caliber of stuff that you're doing, and I'm sure you advise the folks to hand wash and all that. And
you do, and most of those show cars you never really see the daylight anyway.
Yeah.
They're pretty much.
I think it's kind of funny. Talk about the fine lines and the question that you'd asked there. I was doing some real fine line work around here for a while, and the thing that I would get from people is, "I can't really see it. Can you make it bigger?"
They don't really appreciate it, I guess. You're busting yourself to do those small lines. But I've really I still do the fine lines on my artwork, but when I'm striping a car, I don't put them that thin anymore. But
I was curious too. You had mentioned before that you've met a lot of people through this and all, and I've seen that you're in the Pinstripers Hall of Fame. Can you tell us much about that? I mean, I know some people know about it, but there's a lot of people out there that don't really know a whole lot about it.
About the Hall of Fame?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's the Mac Brush Hall of Fame, and I think I was the 74th inductee into that. And you do a panel, and if they like it, well, they'll like your work, and I guess it's still going on. I haven't heard nothing about it in a long time. And then I was in the Hall of Fame that I read on the magazine. It was in Detroit, I think, at the car show. There was all these people, and I was just reading down through them. There was really small print. My name was in that one, and I'm not sure much about that one in Detroit. But but that Mac Brush was a pretty impressive one, because you had to do really nice stuff.
I seem to remember seeing like a gallery on their website.
Yeah, you can go on it and you can see the stuff that the people's done. You send a panel in, then they send you back a really nice plaque, with I think they're still doing it.
So is that something then that they had reached out to you, or you submitted something to them?
I think someone called me, or they called me. I can't really remember. That's been 15, 20 years ago, maybe, I really can't remember, but I think it's still going on.
I'll have to look it up.
I will say It does say on the t-shirt that I'm wearing right now, it says Pinstriping Hall of Fame, Craig Judd.
Well, I think I gave that to you at the Butler.
Yeah, I'm wearing. I told you I was going to wear it for the interview, and then I mentioned it.
Oh, good. Yeah, you told me you were saving it. I said, don't save it. Wear it. I got more. Don't worry about it.
Freddie and I talked about that yesterday, so we're both wearing them. We'll be in family today.
Good. Well, it was just something I thought I'm going to bring to the table when I go up there, and I met all you guys. It was super nice. It was just an incredible weekend, wasn't it? Really, to meet all those people.
Oh yeah, it was something else, especially for two young bucks like us to be even included. We're like, we're both feeling like we had imposter syndrome out there.
Oh man. Well, for him to even invite me in California, all the way to Ohio. When Steve got the call, I just couldn't believe it. And I said, man, I don't know if I'll have time. He goes, Dad, this is something you got to do.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm just going to stop and start on these panels. But it was so nice to actually see your work in that museum. It was really impressive, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Walking in was like straight a blast of color, just on the bare walls, a blast of color, and everybody had their own unique style. There was not a single one that looked like anything else.
No, it was incredible. I looked at everybody's stuff and just bouncing off of it, because I get inspired by other people's stuff. I'll see something I like and I'll think I'm going to do a little different twist on that, or a real beautiful color combination.
Is there folks nowadays, or somebody you could think of nowadays that you're a little inclined to look at more, or?
Well, the Fresno, there's still guys in Fresno like Cycle Art. He's still turning out incredible work, and Jimmy Ogawa, still turning out nice stuff. And there's some young guys coming up out of Fresno, but they're not really bouncing off the Fresno style. They're I think they're going to the internet and seeing designs and stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what that's basically how I learned, was just off the internet. There is a pinstriper here by the name of Letterfly, but I didn't know him when I first started.
I've heard the name.
Yeah, he travels. He travels around to different Harley dealerships throughout the year, and then he comes back. And I've met him since then. But everything for me was online, and that's how I started. Just showing my friends, like on YouTube. I made a video on YouTube, and that grew, and that's how I met Jack. And then I think that's how I got exposure all the way to Steve, to even be included to the Butler. And I'm an internet baby. Like the whole thing for me, pinstriping, all of my artwork that I've sold, everything has all been through the internet. I've done very few vehicles, actually.
Wow. Well, I still do the cars. I was going to tell you something, but back in my day, you have to understand, in the 60s, there was no magazine, where there was no instructional magazines, there was no videos, there was nothing. So what I would do, I'd travel to Fresno, that's like 40 miles from me, and here's Neil Averill, here's Bob Kovac, here's a guy, he's still up there, his name is Soggy. Incredible striper, he's 81 years old, still cranking it out.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I would go to Fresno, and they weren't real friendly to me. I would watch them, and they wouldn't tell you how to. But then they started warming up to me, and then they started showing me things. But I would just watch them, and then I'd go home and practice, And finally got where I could do it. I started out on motorcycles because it was short stuff. Then I got longer lines.
You mentioned that Neil Averill, at the time, whenever he had first got started, went around and visited everyone that he could find there. And you said like LA and all. Did you ever leave the Fresno area looking to learn stuff from other people? Or?
Not really, because Fresno had it all. They were older, and Neil went to everybody's shop. Everybody. His mother took him everywhere. He was only 13 years old. And he even told me that he striped cars at the Oakland Roadster Show. That was the prestigious show in California at that time. He was striping hot rods on the floor right there. And then he did a boat, he got the best, and no one's ever done it since. They got the best graphics at the Oakland Roaster Show on a boat that he did. He was so far advanced in his work that it was just incredible to watch him. And then you think you've seen it all. Then he comes up with new stuff. You just couldn't believe it, you know. But
do you think that there's just as much work now as there was then, or more or less?
You know, I think the young guys are struggling a little bit. I mean, I got a lot of work still because I've done it so long. And people think I've retired, and they keep asking me, "Are you retired?" And I said, "Well, not yet, but I'm slowing down a little bit." So they're all trying to get something done, or they're all trying to buy something from me, which I think is nice. But like I said, I give a lot of my stuff away to charity.
Right.
And I love Chowchilla, and Chowchilla's been good to me. And you know, I've always said this too. I said, you know, just because you're from a small town, you can't have big dreams. You know. So, you know, I had a vision, and I did what I wanted to do. And my art teacher, he actually saved me, because I quit school in '64 because I wasn't going to graduate. I wanted cars and stuff and wasn't interested. And so I quit, and I'll never forget this. He came over to my house the next year in '65, and he wanted me to come back and graduate. I told him, I said, well, I don't know if I can get through math or not. He said, if I get you out of math, will you come back to school? And I said, well, yeah. How he got me out of math, I don't know, but I had 5 periods of art. And so that kind of helped me, you know. But that's the only training I've got in artwork is my high school years.
Wow. That's pretty cool that it was the art teacher that saved you from quitting.
Yeah, he come over, and well, I guess he's seen something in me, you know, and I'll never forget that he had in his office years after that, like in the 70s, he had a lot of newspaper clippings about me and that I did this and I did that. And he had some kids that were, they're called continuation school, I think it was, and there was like 16 going to graduate. And he comes over and asks me, he goes, Craig, would you talk to them in this auditorium? They really want you to talk to them. I said, nice. Really? Nice. I'm not a very good speaker. I said, well, how many people were they going to be? He goes, well, there's only 16. I said, okay. When I got to the auditorium, it was at the fairgrounds. I pulled a curtain back. There was like 200 people there. I wasn't thinking about the parents, the grandparents, the brothers or sisters, and all the relatives. But I pulled it off, and I talked to him about, you know, following your dreams, you know, and but yeah, I owe a lot to my art teacher, John Langren. I think he's up in Washington State. I think he's still living.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it really goes to show all it really takes is just one person to kind of give a little push.
Yeah, it does, and somebody that actually believes in you, you know, and wants you to do good, and you know, education is really the big thing.
Absolutely.
I think something that I've noticed over the past few years, since I stepped into doing art full time, you know, you start to talk to other artists and see other people and see how they're running their business and get to know them. And I meet a lot of people that have made a pretty successful living off of art without having gone to anything after high school. And a lot of them, you know, go back and talk about their high school art teachers and the influence and stuff that they had. Mm-hmm. I think drive, though, is the person's got drive to make it work. That's
yeah, you hit it right on the head. That is it. You if you want it bad enough, and I always tell people, if you love what you're doing, you're going to get good at it. If you're okay with it, you're going to be mediocre. But I loved it. I love striping. I wanted to be the best I could be at it, and I practiced and thrived on it and watched other people's stuff. You know, you got to love it.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize how much time you spend alone when you're.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Yeah, I mean, they see the pictures and all that, but they don't really realize it's just you. You know.
Oh, hours sitting there, and then come back the next day and put more on it. You know.
Yeah.
So that leads to a question that I was curious about too. So, what does a typical week look like for you right now? And
well, usually I'll get a call time when I'm working on the car already, there's another car waiting, and I'll book them in. It's so funny. I run across all my appointment books back in the 70s and 80s. I kept them for some reason. Every square was filled up with all kinds of stuff. But back then days, I could crank it out. But now I just take one pickup or a car, and I'll do that. Maybe another one towards the end of the week. I stay busy. I've got a list right now of people that diesel trucks. And, you think diesel trucks are hard to do, but really it's just a bigger canvas. It's just, you just got to fill more space up.
Do people bring those to you, or do you go to a larger shop or something?
Every once in a while, back in the day, they'd have a place where you could put them in if it was bad weather. But I just do them out in front of my shop. And,
okay.
I still do that.
That's on my bucket list of stuff I want to do. I have not striped a big truck.
They're really easy. I mean, you kind of look at them like a car and find the belt line where the stripe should be, and where the lettering is going to go. And really, it's hard to find a triple threat, a guy that's really good at striping, really good at lettering, and really good at artwork. Usually, they'll have one strong thing, like they're really good at striping, but not so good on lettering and artwork, or they're really good artists, but not so good on striping.
Do you do a lot of lettering then, or?
Yeah, but what's took over is the vinyl. And back in the day, Jack, I used to go uptown and letter windows.
Yeah.
And I learned it was easier if you lettered them from backwards, like doing from the inside out. I was faster doing it that way.
They look crisper too, I think.
Yeah,
I do a lot of that still.
Yeah, if you do the outline first, then fill in the letter.
Right.
But if you did it on the outside, you would fill in the letter, then do the outline. But I don't do many windows anymore because the vinyl things took over. And gosh, they do so much with that vinyl nowadays. It's unbelievable. But people like our clientele and like yours and mine, they don't want vinyl. They don't want nothing plastic on their car.
Right. Well, sometimes you have to convince them of that too. I've come across some cars where they've got vinyl lettering on the side of something from the 40s or something, and it just looks so out of place to me.
It really, and you can just nail it. I mean, you look at it, it just doesn't look right.
You can see it from a mile away, I think.
Yeah, it's got a big thick edge and stuff. Yeah, it's this world's changing. But I see on the internet now, there's so many young people doing it, and I try to encourage them. I get calls. I've got a good friend in Minnesota. He got a hold of me 10 years ago. We're like best friends, and he's very, very good. But he picked me out, and he liked my work, and so we bounce off each other's stuff all the time. And that's what's so cool about this pinstriping. Like since all of us are in that museum, we'll always be connected, to each other from now on.
That's still kind of unbelievable for me. Probably Freddie too, huh?
Yeah, I don't know how I even, when I got the call from Steve, I was like, well, actually, he sent me a message. Hey, can I call you? I said, yeah.
You're kind of starstruck.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, because I was watching his videos online too. He had just a quick, hey, this is the Wizard Vortex. I'm just going to do a couple of scrolls, kind of just showing his brush and the Typhoon. And I studied them 2-minute clips over and over and over because he only had like 4 or 5 clips. Man, I studied them things like crazy because I like the scroll stuff. Is kind of what I liked in the beginning. Yeah, I fell in love with the old school a little bit later, the more traditional lines, and then to get later on, start to get a little bit noticed by him, and then get a phone call, and then get invited. I was just like, this is insane.
Yeah, I was really impressed and really humbled to be invited to that.
Absolutely,
and to meet all you guys and. And like I said, there'll always be a connection with all of us that was in that museum.
For sure. And I think that's why we're, Jack had this idea to do this podcast. And I had an idea of doing something like 10 minutes with a pro or like 10 questions with a pro, but I never pulled the trigger on it. So when he mentioned it, I said, man, this has got to be a sign. So, and since then, Jack and I have just been, basically really good friends. We've built a bond, we show each other artwork and we kind of bounce the ideas off each other. And, now we're trying to make connections all around the world. And, right now it's Florida to Texas to California. So we're in,
Well, a lot of these magazines are folding up like Auto Art. It's gone and Signcraft is gone. So this podcast is really a cool thing.
that leads to another question I had, and we talked about this a little bit on our first episode too. And I'm really curious to hear what other people think. Where do you see the future of pinstriping going right now? You mentioned some younger guys kind of struggling and all, and
yeah, well, a lot of them are they're doing lowriders, and that's really big right now. And I know they're staying busy with that. But I think really around this area, we're still doing the old school. We're still doing the hot rods, a 1/4-inch stripe. Of course, I'm doing new pickups and new cars, and there's only certain ways to do them. But I think it's still staying strong. I know a lot of people in Fresno are really wanting to learn, and so they're wanting to learn this trade. And somebody told me this, and I don't know how truthful it is. They say that it takes more years to be a pinstriper than it does a doctor to be a professional.
I don't know.
If you think about it, it takes a lot of years to stripe to get where you can stripe.
And you got to be, like you said, you damn near got to be a triple threat to be able to do it full time.
Yeah, you're right, because you can't just pull it off just striping, and you can't pull it off just doing artwork. So you got to be able to do all of it. Maybe not all so good in all one area, but at least you can do it.
Yeah, because if I do some, and I'm like a one trick pony. I like design. That's kind of what I fell in love with, and it's kind of what I stuck with. I'm just now dabbling with some lettering, but I remember, even in the very beginning when I was doing some vehicles, they'd say, "Hey, could you put Janet on there or something?" I'm like, "Oh man, you don't want to see that. You do not want to see my lettering."
Scared to death. Yeah, but it just takes that practice. Just practice and practice, and really. I used to go to car shows and look at their signs, the show cards, and I would actually take pictures of them to learn how to do their script, because I loved it, or the block lettering or something, and take pictures and study that. And I used to ask my art teacher. I could stripe, but I couldn't letter yet, and I kept asking him. I says, where do I learn how to letter? And he kept telling me, go to your phone book and look in the yellow pages. But I never could understand what he was talking about. Now I understand there's different styles of lettering.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, gosh, I would spend hours looking at the yellow pages at all the little illustrations and stuff.
Really?
Try to draw pictures from them.
That's a good source, really.
It's funny that the phone book was used in different ways, because my brother and we used to have a game where there would be this little walking figure, like 2 fingers walking. I think it was the logo for the yellow pages, right? So we would
walking through the yellow pages.
Yeah. So we would flip through it, and we would, every time we'd see one of us would tap it and say, "Got it." So it was like the game was to see who could hit that little figure, and we'd flip through, man, books and books and books of them things. Just got it.
Wow.
I don't know if my children have ever even seen a phone book.
Yeah, that's kind of unheard of nowadays.
Yeah, show them the TV guide. Show them that TV guide. Their mind will be blown.
Yeah.
In our house, they'd be like, "What's TV?" I stream everything off the internet.
Yeah, you mean Netflix?
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, there's been a lot of funny things that happened to me too in this career, and it's just got good memories of. But I've worked hard. I remember it's been 110 degrees out there, and be 32 degrees, and trying to work in those elements, But
where you're at, is it kind of desertous then, or is it mostly agriculture? Or?
It's agriculture, and it gets pretty hot in the summertime, and we have a little fog in the winter. But overall, I'm 2 miles from Yosemite, the most beautiful mountains in the world, and 2 hours the other way to the most beautiful oceans in the world. So it kind of got best of both worlds, I mean, it's a nice, and I love Chowchilla because it's a sleepy little town, got a beautiful boulevard with palm trees. And I've lived here all my whole life. I mean, I'm 57 years old, but I remember in the 50s, nobody ever locked their doors and left their keys in their car. But it's just a sleepy little town, and it's just a really nice community because everybody cares about everybody.
I did have a question, since you mentioned funny things that have happened. Have you ever had any, just kind of crazy stories or something that maybe people wouldn't believe that happened or something like that?
Well, I got one, and you can edit this if you want to. I don't know. It's going here, and it was pretty funny. One of the funniest things that ever happened to me. I was doing a lot of antiques. I did a lot of safes from the 1800s and scales and stuff. And this guy brought me a strong box to do from the 1800s, and it was called Virginia City. So I did it all up in gold leaf and intricate corners and striping and flowers and stuff. And so I'm really proud of this thing. I was sitting there, and my son Steve comes in, and I said, "Steve, what do you think?" And he's just not saying nothing. I said, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "Well, you misspelled Virginia." And I said, "I did?" I said, "You put vagina." I said, "Oh my God." I said, "Thank God I didn't send no pictures to nobody."
Wow.
We laughed about that for years. Then years ago, I was in Merced working, and started at 6:00 in the morning. I was working on all these guys' hot rod cars, and it was like 1:00 in the morning. And his friend was there, and he kept bugging me about doing his Cadillac. And I told him, I says, "Man, I'll come back some other day." He goes, "No, Craig, I really want you to do this if you can do it tonight." So I started on the car, and I just striped one side of it. I said, "That's all I got. That's all you're going to get." And to this day, I still run into him, and he's still laughing about it. He's only got part of my car striped. So but he was still laughing about it. That's been 25 years ago.
So you never went back and did the other side?
Never went back and got it. Then another guy, I was doing a bagger motorcycle for this guy, and he was very adamant about how much money he wanted to spend. He goes, "This is all I want to spend. When you get to that point, stop." And I says, "Okay." So I was striking I left 6 inches out of the top of the bag, and I put dollar signs, "Run out of money." And he looked at that, he laughed, he goes, "You got to leave that on there." I said, "You really want me to leave it?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you told me to stop, and that's where I stopped."
That's funny. That's awesome too.
Yeah, I've had a lot of funny things happen, but a lot of it was just hard work, back in the elements and stuff. But survived.
Yeah, well, we're glad you're still doing your thing, and we're glad we're able to get some of your insight on this wonderful art form.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys getting a hold of me, and it's just an honor to talk to you guys. You guys are a first class act, to do this. I think you're right on the cutting edge, because really there's no more magazines there's one out of the UK that I think profiles striping.
Yeah, I think, is it the Pinstriping and Custom Graphics or something like that? Yeah,
it's out of the UK. In fact, they put an article about the butler in there.
Yes, I bought that episode or the issue just because of
Yeah. They also put me in, I don't know if you've ever seen this. These are hardcover books. They're called Pinstriping Planet books.
I've been wanting to buy one. I see them online. I've been wanting to buy one.
I think they're pretty expensive now.
They're almost all them books are expensive, but I mean, it's kind of like it's either you get one or you'll never have it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I know they were in Barnes and Noble.
Yeah,
I remember going to Barnes and Noble to look at it, and here I'm picking this thing up, and I'm in Barnes and Noble. Here I am in a hardcover book, and I'd want to say, "Hey, look at this!
Yeah.
Look at this book!" I was so proud of it. And they profiled me twice, in the first one and the second one.
Wow, that's good.
So I thought that was really nice of them to do that.
Well, I'll see if I can find the one with you in it.
I was sitting here trying to look it up right now while we're talking about it.
There's Pinstriping Planet 1 and Pinstriping Planet 2, and I'm in both of those.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get a collection of books, but like I said, man, some of the stuff is just super pricey, and you got to weigh your options. It's like, do I want to get some more paint, or some more brushes, or some books? But it's almost like evens out, because you're going to get inspiration from these books.
Oh yeah, and you can sit there and look at them.
Yeah, and any little one tip that you could find in that stuff is gold. Any little one,
any little thing. You're exactly right. Anything to help your job. I always say, anything to make your job easier, do it.
Yeah. Do you have any tips that you'd like to share with the people that are listening to this? Or?
Well, really, man, one of the most important things, I think, is taking care of those brushes. Make sure you got all the paint out, the heel of the brushes, and put that oil in there, And one thing that I did, and I don't know if anybody knows about this, but you'll have maybe 4 or 5 striping brushes, and they all kind of look the same, but you got that one that really works good.
Mm-hmm.
Take a razor blade and put a notch in that handle, a little notch in it, so I can tell where that one's at.
I've started dipping the back end of my ones that I'll use for any of the metallic paints in the paint, just so I know this one's from metallics, because it doesn't clean out the same as others.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I never thought about that. That's a good one. Yeah, and just I have a lot of references. I got like a shelf just full of books and stuff, and I look at them every once in a while.
That leads to, I guess, kind of a technical question. You mentioned whenever you do the long line work now with the Fresno style, you've got what you've sprayed, and then you come back and you outline it. When you outline it, there's kind of your normal sword brushes, but there's ones out there that people have made that are specifically for long lines. Are you using those, or are you using just regular sword brush? Or
I just use the sword. I use King 13, and I use the Todd Hansen. And I've got other ones in my box, but the names are wore off. I'm not really sure what they are, but I put notches in them, different ones that I know this one's for long lines. It works good, or this one's good for turning around for edging flames and stuff. It's funny how you'll find some of these brushes work better than others.
Yeah, and they could still be the same exact brush, same brand.
Yeah. And I remember back in the day, I used those green sword brushes, the green wrap, and those were actually touch-up brushes.
Right.
But I didn't know the difference. And then all of a sudden now here you got these blue wraps, and I thought, man, now these really work good.
Yeah.
Then they got
When you started, what was available to you product-wise?
Basically, all it was those green wraps, and they were like, in fact, when I worked in the body shop, there was a striping brush laying on the paint thing, and I thought, what is this? And I'm looking at it, and I find out it's a striping brush. I cleaned it up really good and started messing with it. But all there was those green wrap brushes that I know of.
Right.
I'm sure there was I know there was a lot of quill brushes that was available.
And I'm sure that it probably was rough in the beginning with those, but once you got a hold of I'm assuming the blue wrap is a higher quality hair.
Yeah, they're just a better. I don't know. The green wrap was more or less a touch-up brush that I didn't know. I thought you striped with them, and I did stripe with them.
Yeah, but I'm sure once you got them blue ones, it was like all of a sudden grease lightning.
This is a whole new, yeah. And then when the Todd Hansens come out and the King 13s, and I think there's a hippie brush that's really good.
Oh, the triple hippie. Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, I haven't used that one.
Yeah, those are all really good brushes. And quill brushes, I just use MAC quill brushes, and I know some people have really stepped up and got real expensive quill brushes, but I don't really do that much lettering anymore. Now and then, I cut and spray my lettering, and then I outline it.
Oh, okay. What do you do the lettering on truck doors then for the big trucks?
Yeah. And then I keep all my patterns, and I date them. I date my patterns, and I put the price what I charged, and then I file them into a cardboard box. And then when if I get another truck from that same outfit, I just pull the pattern out, see what I charged 10 years ago, and I come up on my prices. And
that's smart.
Yeah, and then sometimes I'll take a picture and even put it in with the pattern so I know how the colors are and stuff. But I still got a lot of people want me to do these diesel trucks, but and I'm trying to slow down a little bit. I'm doing trying to do new pickups and new cars. And
do you keep records like that on cars and stuff as well, or?
No, not so much. Usually they'll say, well, man, I really like what you did on my car. I said, well, you got any pictures of it? Because I can't remember them all. They'll show me pictures. I said, oh, yeah, I remember that now. And I go to the only car show I do. I went to the Grand Nationals. I did that Grand National twice. I did, or 3 times in the booth. Then the only car show I do now is the Chowchilla car show. It's in the park. It's really a nice car show. And I do a full-size bowling pin for the best of show. It's I candy apple it, flame it, stripe it, artwork, clear coat it. And they're absolutely gorgeous. Nobody wants a trophy anymore. They want one of those bowling pins.
Oh yeah, I know around here anything that's homemade trophy wise has become way more sought after, I guess.
Yeah, they're just a cool. Well, people got those trophies. They'll put them in a box. They don't even want to show them. I've been at that Chowchilla car show when someone's won the best of the show, and they come up to me, "Oh my gosh, this is the best thing we've ever won. We're going to put this right in our front room." So it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice.
When you do something like a bowling pin, do you hold it in your hand and spin it when you're doing the line because it's such a round shape?
You know what? A friend of mine was with a little nub on it, and you can clamp it onto your easel, and you put that bowling pin on it, and you can flip it around and turn it. When I'm working on it, because those have to be ground down and bondoed up, I put a big a rod in that vise, and then I put that bowling pin on in that hole, and then I grind it down and prime it, bondo it and sand that down, primer it. They're hard to hold on to, and they're top heavy, so you have to be careful with them.
Yeah. I was just curious about that because this is the one the mold that I saw of yours at the Butler. I think it was the orange one. There was one that was mostly orange.
It was orange.
I just couldn't wrap my head around how you got around that curve with such precision. But I guess that's time and your talent.
Yeah, they're a little hard to do. Well, the full size ones, when they're completely, the whole bowling pin is hard because they're so hard to hold on to.
Yeah,
and the time, you have to get $500 for doing one of those because there's so much time involved.
Yeah, for sure.
The artwork, the striping, the flames, the painting of it, the clear coating.
So the car show itself, then they pay you to make the trophy then for it?
Yeah, I give them a good deal because they give me a free booth. They give me radio time that I'm going to be there. They give me anything I want. They really help me in Chowchilla. So I always, and I got posters that I've done, and I sign a poster and give it to people, and I'm always giving stuff away.
That's the nice.
Chowchilla,
Go ahead.
Chowchilla has just been really good to me. So.
Yeah, that's the nice thing I think that I've found also with pinstriping is the folks are willing to do trades.
Yeah,
and that's awesome. It's almost like you got your own little currency that nobody else has around you.
Exactly. I know this one guy. He's a good friend of mine, and I've met him years ago when I did the Grand Nationals. His name is Ron Foreman. He's way up in age, but he was like one of the first ones out. And he invites me to his brush. I think it's called a brush rush. It's in up by Pasadena. It's about 4 hours from me. So I guess I'm going to go this next year. Mike Klein's, he's out of Sacramento, very good striper, and he wants to come by and pick me up, and me and him go because
that's cool.
He wants to go, and so it's really a kind of a family almost into this,
Well, that's one.
Yeah, I know around here where I'm at too. There's a few other stripers in Dallas-Fort Worth area, and you kind of lean on each other every now and then, or throw each other jobs when you're too busy, or maybe somebody might be a better fit for something. Or
yeah. I've turned a lot of people on to my work that I can't do it, and I tell them, I said, if you wanted to, this guy can do it for you, So you kind of pass it around, and you got to have confidence in them that they can do it.
Right.
But
there's. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Freddie.
There's a fellow by the name of Crisco that's he's here year round. He's in a town over, Chris Palmatier, and I want to say 70% of the stuff that comes my way, I pass it to him. I don't know if he gets it or takes it, but there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's just over my head, and I'm to the point where I know my experience level, and I don't want to disappoint people, and I don't want to put stuff out there that I can't do.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to look at it, and I've heard of that guy before too. He is good.
Oh, he's real good, and he does it fast. I went up to he does the bike show here in my town. He lives a couple towns over, but he does the bike show here once a month, and I'll go see him, and I mean, he knocks stuff out fast, and I wonder, man, how do you get from point A to point B with these?
Some are amazing.
Yeah, he just kind of he understands the lines already on like these baggers and such. There's a lot of baggers, seems like, but I don't know how he gets from point A to point B so quick. But I guess it's just time, just putting the time in.
Oh yeah, some of those guys they're masters at it. They're just, they're natural.
Oh yeah.
When I started out, I fought it because I'm not a trained artist. No one taught me anything. I had to pretty much learn on my own by watching other people. And I was fortunate enough to have some of the best pinstripers ever out of Fresno, and got to bounce off. There was Bob Kovac. There's another guy I was telling you about, Soggy. He's 81 years old. I just turned him on to a wall mural here in Chowchilla. I just didn't want to do it. And he did it. And he's just an incredible striper. He did the posters for Janis Joplin and who else? Big Brother and Holding Company. And he did the original posters for those people.
Oh, wow.
But he's a well-known, he's a fine artist. He goes to New York and does big wall murals in New York. And I remember seeing his stuff for the first time. I thought, now who's this guy? He was out of Fresno.
Well, we're definitely going to take notes on all these names that you gave us, and hopefully we'll make
I've been writing them down.
Well, Soggy's incredible. I mean, he's a fine artist, but his striping is incredible too.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to come back and listen because I'm paying attention, making sure we're still getting recording waves. So I'm glad Jack's writing it down.
Writing some of them down. Trying.
Well, there's a lot of history here. Actually, there's a lot in Fresno, but a lot of those guys in Fresno were bouncing off the guys in LA, but there was some incredible stripers. Dean Jeffries was one of my best, I think, from the old guys. There was 7 of them that was out first, and Dean Jeffries was one of them. And they called him the modern day striper. And Von Dutch, his stuff was really crude. It was really, I call it almost chicken scratch, stuff around the door handles, stuff around the hoods. I don't know if he was a one-liner. I'm not sure about that, but I know Dean Jeffrey was, Larry Watson, Tom Kelly, Dean Jeffries. Those guys are all, they could pull a line.
Did you ever spend any time yourself with any of those guys? Or?
Never did. They were mostly all gone. I know they just did. Larry Watson died about 4 or 5 years ago, and they did his casket up in the mountains where I live, and they wanted me to help them. And I met another guy. We rode motorcycles up there, and they were working on it. And Steve Ricklitz, I think it was striping it. He goes, Craig, why don't you jump in here and help us stripe this thing? I said, I don't want to jump on nobody's toes. I said, you guys are doing a beautiful job. I just wanted to watch them,
Right. Yeah.
But, I have that Tom Kelly at the Grand Nationals. Ron Foreman, I met him. Phil Whetstone. I know I'm missing some people. Vaughn Hot Rod. I met some really nice people. But a lot of the older ones are gone, and it's a shame. But I got a lot of those little hot rod magazines with their pictures in it. Of course, they're all young. It was in the 50s. But I got fortunate to meet the guys in Fresno,
That's really cool. That's one of the big reasons that we're wanting to do this podcast is to hear those stories about, from people who have known other people and maybe aren't here anymore. Or...
Yeah. Bob Kovac, he came from Van Nuys and he ended up in Clovis. That's just a little town right out of Fresno. And I got to meet him, and I watched him. He would never tell you what to do. You just had to watch him. And, then I would come back and practice. But Bob was at my shop a lot. He actually, when I got so busy with that antique stuff, I couldn't do it no more. So I gave it to him. And he ended up doing all the safes and all that stuff. But I did that antiques work that was a good gig. I did it for like 20 years. And, you just sit in your shop and do it. It was so intricate. And those safes, they had to be over the top. You couldn't just do them plain because they looked like an anchor. Then they had to have beautiful murals on them.
And the spelling
some
had
of
to
the
be
work
right.
that was on them.
Go ahead. I was going to say, and the spelling's got to be right on them too.
Oh yeah, I messed up one time, and I proofreaded everything after that. Oh my gosh, that was.
I was going to say I come across some of the old safes every now and then because I like to go to little small towns here in Texas and pop into all the old buildings and stuff, and some of the safes are still there, and They also have the original work on them, and I'll take pictures like crazy because I mean, even the stripe work that's on them is above most stuff that you would ever see nowadays.
In the 1800s, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know? I really believe I've seen some safes that weren't looked that good, and then there were some that was over the top. I think there was certain artists worked on certain safes, that was really, really good. They did them, and but there was some that it was okay, but there were some that were really, really pretty. I got to do two that there's only that they know of. The two of them in the world are called pedestal safes, and they have legs on them. They were kind of small. They were in a brothel, and they had women's heads all molded around the edge of the legs. The legs were horses' hooves, and there was only two of them. They only know two of them in the world, and I got to do both of them. In fact, you can go on Pinstripers Garage and probably go through my profile and probably find those.
Yeah, I'll have to look for that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
The neatest ones I've seen around here are usually ones that were owned by the railroad.
Yeah. Did they have trains? I did one with a train on it.
No, usually they have like scenic landscapes.
Yes, they were beautiful, weren't they?
Yeah, but I mean, most of them, it's like the town just north of me, Weatherford, Texas. There's a feed store there that used to be the boarding house for the railroad. And when you go in there, it's a good example of like what I'm talking about. The safe itself is a whole room. And then the door is bigger than the door to the room I'm in right now, and it's completely decorated.
Wow.
And then they'll have woodwork and stuff that's worked all the way around the outside of that. That's just fantastic stuff.
Just masters at that stuff back then. They spent so much time on it, and they probably only made 50 cents an hour, probably, but they would spend hours on that.
Do you find inspiration and other artworks and stuff? Is there other stuff that you seek out inspiration from other than?
I'm looking at everybody's stuff. I'm looking at your guys' stuff. I'm looking at the Wiz, Steve's stuff, and a lot of stuff.
Do you find inspiration outside of pinstriping for the work that you do?
Me and my wife used to travel down the highway, and she goes, "You're going to cause us to have a wreck." Because I'm looking at billboards, I'm looking at diesel trucks, and that's it's just almost a curse because you're looking all the time for stuff.
Do you listen? Do you listen to anything in particular while you're doing work?
Well, I'm a blues man, so I've got blues playing 24/7.
Nice.
And that kind of soothes me down, and that's my escape. I'll listen to that kind of music. And like I said, my kids are all musicians, so I like music.
Nice. We got a blues festival coming up. Actually, I think Jimmy Vaughn's going to be there, and I was thinking.
Oh man!
Yeah, I was thinking about checking that out.
Oh man, at the Grand National, he's usually there. ZZ Top's usually there walking around. But Jimmy Vaughn, I think he gave a guitar away a few years back at the Grand Nationals.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah, to have that. But yeah, I'm looking at stuff all the time. I'm always looking at diesel trucks, and there's some incredible sign painters now, incredible people that just, the detail is unbelievable. I just met a good friend of mine. His name is Harry Tapley. I hope I'm getting his name right. He lives in Hollister, and that's about 2 hours from me. I'm telling you, he does these diesel trucks. I mean, he's the new guy. I mean, his stuff is incredible.
Is he doing murals on them or something? Or?
He can do anything. He's a triple threat. He does beautiful, beautiful lettering, and the graphics on them are just gorgeous. He said he's got trucks coming to him all the way from Bakersfield. And Bakersfield's probably 5 hours from him.
What was his name again?
Harry Tapley, I think. I'm hoping I'm getting that name right.
Yeah,
he's in Hollister. It's Harry. His first name is Harry Tapley. I think I'm saying it right. But he's in Hollister, California. I mean, the guy, I've gave him a few trucks that I couldn't do, and I don't know if he got them. I hope he did. But I've been to his shop 3 or 4 times. They've had where they want all the stripers to come to meet everybody and do work. I met Lane Walker there and Jeff Debbie. They're out of Idaho. Those guys are masters. I sat there behind them, watching them do a layout, and I was just amazed. These guys are just incredible, and just nice guys too.
Yeah, I think the more we've gotten around and spoken to people, the more we realize there's more kind folks in this art than anything else.
Yeah, I'm willing to help anybody that, because really, if you do that, your name lives on. You know, if you help somebody and they say, "Well, Craig, help me do this," or they show me this little trick and this really helped me, so your name lives on.
Yeah, for sure. I know as the young bucks here, we definitely appreciate it.
Well, you guys do beautiful work too. Don't cut yourself short.
We're trying.
yeah, and it's so cool to have a family of this that we can all bounce off of.
I know some people have talked about having had mentors, I guess, that they actually worked in their shop and all. Did you ever work in anyone else's shop as far as striping?
Never did. I started out that Chevrolet dealership in Chowchilla, and then from then I worked there maybe 4 or 5 years and was a journeyman bodyman and painter. Then I opened my own body shop. And then from then I thought, this is not for me. I want to do custom work. So I started doing custom motorcycles and striping. And I would actually take my stuff after I painted it. I would take it to Fresno and either have Neil do it or Bob Kovac. And then they both encouraged me that, hey, you're doing all this. You can stripe. So I just found a big box of old pictures, and they're actually funny. But you got to start somewhere. These are my very first paintings and striping. But, I never worked in their shops, but learned a lot from them, different techniques. And Bob would give me brushes, and Neil would give me brushes to try out. And they were really good to me. I mean, because I was thinking they're the best of the best, because I'm from Fresno and they're in Fresno. So,
do you right now have a pretty good sized shop, or?
No, it's probably about. I've been here for since 1970, I think. It's probably 45 foot long, maybe by 30 foot wide.
Okay,
it's fairly good. But I got a big backyard where I put diesel trucks, and I got big shade trees that covers me up if I'm working out there on a diesel truck. But the weather is usually not too bad. Like right now, we got like 80 degrees weather.
I'm jealous.
I talked to my friend in Minnesota. It's like 30 below sometimes, and I don't even want to tell him what my temperature is here.
Yeah, the weather's pretty good here in Florida right now, but hurricane season's creeping up, so we'll see.
Yeah,
Texas is bipolar. We get one day it's below freezing, and the next day you're outside in shorts, and then it goes back. They say
in Texas you just bring a coat no matter where you go.
Yeah,
because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we keep umbrellas in the car.
Yeah, I think we're a high of 60 something today, and tomorrow it's supposed to be in the 80s. So,
oh my, yeah, that's kind of what it's doing right here, right now. It's up and down.
Yeah.
Well, anything's better than the freezing cold, I'd say.
Oh, I can't take cold, man. It's not good for a painter.
No. Yeah. I've never had to paint in the cold, and I don't think I ever will.
Yeah.
I've got studio space in part of my house so that I've got heating and AC when it's too bad outside.
Oh, man, that's good. I've never had a water cooler or anything in my shop. I just have fans blowing. And it's a brick building, so it stays pretty cool.
Nice. Well, we're creeping up on an hour and a half now. I don't know if we want to start winding down, Jack, if you got any other questions.
Yeah. I can't think of anything. Is there anything at all, Craig, that you would like to mention? Or
well, just thank you guys for searching me out and doing the interview. I'm really humble for you guys to ask me to do this. It's just been an incredible ride, to do this work and get the notoriety that I've got over the years. And the podcast, I think this is going to be the new thing because the magazines are gone and we can tell our story easier really talking about it than writing it down.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know most of the pictures and stuff that I've seen of your work is your son putting them on Pinstripers Garage there on Facebook. Is there any other place that people can find examples of what you do? Or
I think you can go on your phone and just put in Craig Judd Pinstriping artwork, and a lot of the stuff will come up. but a lot of it's on Pinstripers Garage. That Steve posts, all the time on my stuff. I guess I got it. I don't know much about it, but is there a page where all your work is on one page?
Not really. You can do a search though and find.
Yeah, if they type your name into that, if they type your name into that group, it'll show everything in line that's tagged with your name on it.
That's kind of what I heard. Probably the majority of it would be on Pinstripers Garage. I know both my videos are online. They're free. I didn't really do the videos to make money. I did those videos to really kind of help people. To show the secrets and stuff that a lot of people are not telling. That's what I did those videos for.
What's the title of those videos, just in case anyone's looking for them?
Pinstriping Made Easy by Craig Judd, and I think Flames Made Easy by Craig Judd.
Yeah, I'm looking. I can see right now on YouTube, you can find Pinstriping Made Easy. That's like part 1, 2, and 3.
I got big tubs completely full of VCRs, because that's what was going on when I made those. Now everything's went to a CD, and I did make a big run of CDs, but I don't even have them anymore. But I got tubs of the VCRs.
Hey, so if anyone wants a VHS,
I can hook them up. Actually, I translated my Pinstriping Made Easy into Spanish.
Oh, nice.
And I had this guy. He had a beautiful voice. He sounded like a disc jockey, so I hired him to translate all that video into Spanish. I've never tried to sell it anywhere. I think there's a market for that in a Spanish magazine, probably.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, for sure, because there's a big custom paint culture in South America.
They really are, and they're really good artists.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of products or anything out there? T-shirts or?
Yeah, I sell T-shirts, and I sell all my reproduction clocks and signs, and I think you might be able to see those on if you put in Craig Judd's artwork. I've got probably 30 pieces to pick from of different artwork that I did, and they mass produced it. I got all the rights back to all that because I was dealing with some other people, but I just wanted to have my own rights on my own artwork. So I'm the only one that can look, because I was going into shows and here's these vendors with all my artwork. And where did they get that at? So
that's kind of an issue nowadays, it seems like. Yeah,
but I got control of it now, and I can sell my artwork. I just had some little pins made of my logo, the little flying eyeball guy. Steve had them made in China, and we just got those back, and they're really, really nice. In fact, we ought to put them on Pinstripers Garage and let people look at them.
Yeah, so if anybody wanted anything like that, do they just call you up or?
Probably call me, and then I could send them pictures and stuff. I don't know.
Do you have any contact information that you'd like to give out? And keep in mind, this is going to, who knows how many people are going to hear this, but, keep that in
mind. My telephone is 559-665-4300. That's my landline, and then my cell phone is 1-559-223-1723. If they want to get a hold of me.
Okay, thank you.
And then Steve, he's kind of like my go-to guy. I'm not sure what his. You guys would probably know what his Facebook thing is.
What we'll do is we'll get as much information as we can, and Jack's been pretty good about putting in a little biography there on the podcast, so folks can maybe get in contact.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Really question for you, kind of in regards to that. Would you mind if we maybe put a couple of pictures of your work on the website for the podcast?
No, I'd love for you to. And Steve's got all the pictures in high resolution. Yeah, I'd love to show my stuff like that on there. It'd be really nice.
All right. Well,
I think that about covers it, Craig. We appreciate you very much, and hopefully we'll be able to come around and do another interview after a while. We'll loop around and check in on you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and thank you guys for singling me out and telling my story. And you guys are incredible people. You've got a lot out of me.
Oh, we appreciate it.
Yeah, we 100% appreciate you, sir.
I just hope it sounds good and it all comes out good.
Well, I'll do my best on my end. And
well, I know you guys got great voices, so it's going to come out good.
All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see you around somewhere again, too.
Yeah, you never know. And I just appreciate you guys, like I said, to give me this notoriety. And just nice to be a family. I know we'll always have the connection because we was at the Butler Museum, and I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
We definitely appreciate all that you've done, talking to us today, but also all that you've done to inspire other people. And
yeah, well, that's what it's all about, and try to help these guys. And I mean, they want it, but they need the information too, and they need the tricks of the trade. And a lot of people won't tell them that. But like I said, you tell people and how to do things when your name lives on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like people are opening up now more than they used to. And it's
Jack, you're exactly right. I see it too. It's more better now.
When I first started, I didn't know of anybody, couldn't find anything. And when I did meet people, it's kind of closed lips about stuff. And I stopped for a while. And when I came back, it was a totally different world. Everybody seemed to talk about stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're exactly right. I don't know what it is, but people finally realize, hey, be nice to people, I mean, when we're struggling trying to learn this, you're wanting to learn it, And if the guy's good enough, you don't have to worry about stealing any work from the guy.
Yeah.
And I think I even said this one time. I said, a lot of people were copying my style, and I kind of was upset about it. And then I kept thinking, well, how cool is this? That they like it so much, they're copying it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. And you got a very defined style.
Well, I appreciate it. I spend a lot of time on it, and a lot of times I don't get paid for all the work that I put into it. But, you'll do this show car, and here's this car in a big time show, and you look at it and think, man, I'm glad I spent a lot of extra time on that car and did all that extra work. Because here it is in all of its glory. There's a couple cars that you could go online and look. If you put in Vendetta 49 Ford pickup, that was a $250,000 pickup that I did. And people want to look at that. It was on front page of I think Trucking Magazine. And then I did another one, that Panic Parrot Studebaker. It was in Super Rod. Those were that car was over 300,000.
Wow.
Yeah, those are high end cars, buddy.
Very high end, and just to be involved with your name with that car is really something, And who would ever think, starting out in a small town, to get this notoriety like this, it's unbelievable to me. I always tell my son Steve, I just can't believe it.
Yeah, and you're leaving a high watermark for sure. It's something that us younger guys we're looking to try to get close to, and you're leaving a long legacy of great work. So it's amazing.
I really appreciate that. I mean, the Fresno style, I love it. I'd love to see it continue. I noticed a few of those guys when we was back east. I seen some of the cars, they had a sprayed like a 1/2-inch span, a 1/4-inch span, and I'd never seen that back east. So I think they're picking up on it. Maybe they've been doing it for a long time. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking to somebody in New York, I think. So we'll see what the other coast has to say about that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because they'll hear this one and they'll add more to it.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about does it, Craig. We'll let you go. We'll let you enjoy your day, and we appreciate your time.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for interviewing me. And like I said, you can get pictures from Steve and on his Facebook.
Yeah, I'll do that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. And you guys have a good day. And thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Thank you very much.
That was Craig Judd out of Chowchilla, California. Super, super grateful to have him on the show. Really awesome guy. Really good interview. Do you have anything you wanted to add about that real quick, Freddie?
No, I think it's incredible that we were able to speak to him, and he was gracious enough to give us his time. And hopefully we do him some justice with this audio, and hopefully it moves the art form forward, and other people become inspired by it.
Man, you got better words than me there. Appreciate that.
Well, it's a little challenge, right? Doing the three person, because we're just doing an audio 3-way call. So I try to just keep quiet, let him tell his story, and I figured we'll flip back and forth, and
hopefully those of you out there that are listening to us will be patient with us as we learn with this whole situation here. But hope you guys enjoyed that as much as we did. I really enjoyed talking to him. So
yeah, it was a wealth of information with Craig.
Yes. I guess with that said, we'll go ahead and close it off here. Hope everyone's doing well. Again, if you have any questions for us, or even questions you'd like us to ask the people that we're interviewing, you can email us at pinstripers.podcast@gmail.com. And then, spread the word and help us grow. We'd appreciate it.
Yes, if y'all could please share this with your friends and family, or anybody that that might be interested in hearing these stories, or even just folks that are interested in general art. I think it'd be a good way to expand this art form into other regions and other areas, and maybe some folks that don't know much about it. So we appreciate y'all 100%.
Yep. All right. Well, have a good day, and if you paint, go get your brushes wet.
Oh yeah. I'll see y'all later.
All right. Bye.